there. You're just the biggest goofball. You're a big goofball. Nobody loves you, I can tell.
So, slow time and fast time. Well, welcome to Jennifer Davis, my friend from Nashville, Tennessee.
The big metropolitan city.
Yeah, it is. Especially compared to little Chattanooga. But Jennifer said, "Hey, I'll meet you at 11." And then I had the wherewithal to ask her. I was like, "Hey, are you talking Eastern or Central? Are you talking about fast time or slow time?"
Well, it was kind of funny because I forget that there's a time difference in Chattanooga. Because it's like one side of the mountain is Central and the other side of the mountain is Eastern. And if you're not really clear who you're talking to, you get lost. So I wanted to show up at 11 o'clock Tennessee time, and he said, not even Tennessee time, the other side of Tennessee time.
It is Tennessee time.
Not Georgia time. Not Georgia time.
Well, New York time, right? Because
doesn't the time change when you go to part of Georgia?
Yes. But so the deal is, so Tennessee is three great divides, right? Or three great divisions. That's the reason we have 3 stars in the flag. Mm-hmm. And so the hillbillies on the eastern side, Knoxville and Chattanooga, are on Eastern time, same as New York City. That's kind of the deal.
The irony.
The Chattanooga Times, actually, the guy Ox owned the New York Times. So we're kind of have this New York Chattanooga connection.
Really?
Yeah, oddly enough. Yeah,
I had no idea.
That's kind of an interesting backstory. But anyway, so the Eastern, us hillbillies in the hills of East Tennessee are on New York time. But we're definitely not a New York vibe.
The opposite. It's like instead of showing up an hour early, I showed up an hour late.
So my grandparents, they grew up in Sequatchie Valley and grew up, they lived. So whenever we visited them for lunch, we would have to ask and clarify, hey, is this slow time or fast time that we're getting together?
Now, like, what about the connotations? Like, who's calling who's slow?
Well, everybody, it's slower.
So, like, which side of the mountain is slow?
The Sequatchie Valley side is always slower. So everything's a little slower over there in the valley. And too, I always remember growing up as a kid, we had sweet tea there's like sweet milk and light bread. And I was like, what is light bread? And that was the white bread that was sliced already.
That you get at the grocery store.
At the store, right.
The bunny bread, the Wonder Bread.
Yeah. And if sweet milk, that was just not buttermilk.
Right. Because the other buttermilk, my grandma called it clabber milk. She would want clabber milk.
My grandfather drank buttermilk and ate onions raw like an apple. I just remember that growing up. So
you probably remember his breath, too. Yeah. I said my granddaddy would eat liverwurst and onions, and I can still, it's like scratch and sniff. Like, what were they thinking?
That was just, it is interesting, and a lot of times Middle Tennesseans, and when we go visit, it only takes an hour to get to Nashville for us because we gain an hour going west.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because like where I am in Nashville, so many people move to Tennessee. They like want to come to Tennessee. They want to come to Nashville. They want to do country music. Except Nashville is kind of like the Florida of the South. It's really not the South anymore.
Really?
We used to think about like Florida.
That big a change?
Yeah, I mean we have high rise after high rise and traffic, and it's lost what I would consider like that smooth country, calm kind of thing that Nashville and Tennessee's traditionally been known for. So people come here from other places and they're like, we want to move to Tennessee. And they have this utopian idea that they're going to move to Nashville, be a country music star, buy a farm, buy a farm, get an old truck and just like cruise around. And then when they get to Nashville, it's like nonstop traffic and postage stamp size lots. The little town that I live in now, which is White House,
north of Nashville.
It's 20 minutes north of Nashville. When I was a kid, I lived in Cross Plains, and there were 800 people in the town, the whole town. And I'm not that old. I'm old, but not that old. 800 people. So right now, in the little next town over, there are 7,000 active building permits.
Whoa. That's a lot.
7,000. And that's not what was built last year.
100 times the population of years ago.
But that's the building permit. So if there's an average of 4 people per household, you've gone from a population of 800 to a population of 28.
and probably more here in the near future.
Like 28,000.
Because
if it's 7,000 times 4, I mean that's
a lot of
7
change.
times 4. That's 20.
So just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Nashville with some commercial agents, and I went to school in Nashville. I have never seen that much glass. The high rises with the glass. I was like, this isn't Nashville.
It almost looks like Germany or European, like the style of buildings that they're building.
Yeah, so
very
glass.
very modern, very glass.
Yeah.
And they talk about like how, like when you pave something, it has a temperature differential. So now that there's so much glass, you have glass plus the pavement, and it's changing the temperature range of Nashville. So Nashville is hotter because of all the reflection of the glass.
Wow. That was very, very different. The one thing I will say that was a positive, and I got some feedback on Twitter, was I went to school at Vandy, and I lived in these ugly 1970s built boxes, and they knocked them down, and they built this really nice, architecturally pleasing, somewhat inspirational big tower. It's really cool looking. It's old school looking.
Yeah, over on West End, across the street from Centennial Park.
Yeah, and not glass.
No, it looks like an old building.
Yeah, it looks old.
It's brick, and it's got the columns. I think it's even got some gargoyles or something.
That was
got
the
some
one
concrete statues.
I thought, I'm actually kind of proud that I went to school there, and for that one reason. I mean, not necessarily the football team, but hey.
We won't bring that up. Because that's always a point of contention.
But I'm glad you're here in Chattanooga and in the small town, and our town is changing too. I mean,
Chattanooga reminds me of Nashville 25 years ago. Like when you could fly into the airport in Nashville and it was quiet. I mean, it was like, especially when you were flying in from the West Coast, it was almost like flying into the graveyard.
So this studio is really close to the airport, and we're not being
you don't hear anything. I mean, and then the airport in Nashville is just expanding and expanding and expanding.
Yeah.
But when people are moving to Tennessee, there's a lot of distance between Nashville and Chattanooga and Nashville and Memphis. And then if you put into consideration, pitiful. If you put into consideration the difference in Memphis to Chattanooga, or the pure like eastern part of Tennessee, when you're talking about like the 3 grand divisions, even culturally, there's a big difference in how, like when you talk about slow time or fast time, or, the difference in when you get outside the collar counties of Davidson County. You just go one county out, and you're back in rural Tennessee. So you don't have to live in Nashville.
Yeah, that's the thing about our state. And, if you tip it up, people geographically would say, well, okay, I'm going to be in Memphis and I'll just drive over to Chattanooga or Bristol.
Miles.
Yeah, they don't think. You tip Tennessee up, and Nashville to Canada is the same distance as like Memphis to Bristol. We just kind of don't have our minds wrapped around that geographically. And people who live up in the Northeast certainly don't. I mean, you can be in another state in 15 minutes,
What do you think Chattanooga is best known for, though?
The choo-choo. I think.
But I mean, like
one thing. Historically,
more modernly, because it's like we always go back to the Civil War, but now I mean it's like Subaru's here, right?
No, Volkswagen.
I was like, I remember somebody.
The Germans have landed here with Volkswagen. And like Nissan moved from Los Angeles to Murfreesboro, Middle Tennessee, brought 10,000 jobs, and that's been years ago. But that was a flywheel that really changed Middle Tennessee. Volkswagen is a big deal that came here when Bob Corker was, before he was a senator, was our mayor, and had a big part to play in that. And so.
But I think like this distance between Nashville and Chattanooga, Knoxville, not necessarily like Gatlinburg, but it's becoming the playground of Nashville.
Yeah, well, Monteagle, when I was going over to Nashville, Monteagle was always, it was a mountain, and they had the retreat known as the Assembly. And that's where the wealthy folks from Nashville spent summers in like a summer town that was higher elevation, is cooler, pre-air conditioning. And so they would spend their summer times up there. And And now with the interstate, and you just flip over that little Monteagle, of course, Johnny Cash singing the hugging the Chattanooga city limit sign, that song that he kind of made famous.
But one of the top 20 hikes in the United States is in Grundy County. It's called the Fiery Gizzard.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like just outside of Monteagle.
Yeah, matter of fact, we just had 200 acres. Jane Armstrong sold on Fiery Gizzard Road, and Grintley Lager was my password for a while. I love those words and names over there in Grundy.
But when you're moving to Nashville, and say you live in urban Nashville,
that sounds like Jiazhen.
I'm like, wait a minute, who is that? Hello, how are you?
Hey, Jiazhen.
I thought you were my kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, hello, how are you?
Hello, to meet you.
Yes, ma'am. How are you doing?
Doing good.
It's like, sit down. Yeah, sit down and join us.
So we're just talking about the state of Tennessee. And
The State of the Union.
Yeah.
State of the Union. Hey, Laura.
It's like, he's here.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this on my shoulder and then we can share.
Okay.
So Jiazhen is fairly new to Tennessee, although her husband grew up in East Tennessee in Etowah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her experience with Tennessee is coming from southern part of China,
So I guess I'm guessing the
and
southern part
or
of
South Korea, and
South Korea. Yeah.
more recently.
South anything. Is
South
different than-
everything.
You know you're in the south,
I-
south.
South. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But like, you know, that whole area, we can go back to that, it's becoming a recreation area. So
Yes.
if you live in a condo in Nashville, or you live in a subdivision, and you want to take a weekend trip, you don't have to go to Colorado to go to the mountains, nor do you have to go all the way to Gatlinburg, because you can stop in Cookeville, which is like where they started CrossFit. You can go to one of the 4 rivers that are between there. You know, like you can go to Dale Hollow, Center Hill. What's the other one? Dale Hollow, Center Hill, Cordell Hole, Tim's Ford.
We're talking about Tennessee Techville and
Well, just the lakes that are between, you know, the lakes and the rivers that are
between Nashville and Knoxville and Nashville and Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there's state parks.
Fall Creek Falls.
Fall Creek Falls.
Burgess Falls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful areas that people can, I guess, get a second home, have some kind of short-term rentals or something like that, maybe in the mountains.
Because most of those counties have basically no building regulations.
That's true.
So if you're
And
in
zoning,
that,
no zoning.
design. So
Yeah.
like if you're in the Airbnb market in one of the larger metropolitan cities and they're cracking down and you need to go somewhere with your money, if you're going to do a 1031 or something and you just want to get out of the city limits, I think, you know, like the perception of those more rural counties that we've looked at, you know, traditionally just as being poverty stricken. It's like, because more my granddad would say where the land is poor, the people are poor. But now that land has become valuable not for the agricultural purposes, but for the recreational purposes. Because you can climb and kayak and look at trees and do all the pretty things.
So what did you learn? You came to Sequatchie Valley and to what we would say is Whitwell, or Whitwell to the foreigners.
Yeah. And they had a tractor sitting at the 4-way stop and like an old car. I mean, like the difference in culturally going from, you know, just, was it 30 minutes over there? 20 minutes over there? We drove up Suck Creek, which I have a hard time letting that one roll off my tongue. It's like, where are you going? To Suck Creek.
Well, and you know, I don't know if you realize this, and I'm going to back this other camera up too.
You are giving Gege some hard time. Yeah.
Oh, this
Yeah,
one.
it's the
This
other
is.
way.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay, and this
I keep
one.
sliding my butt on.
Yeah, I know. This
You need some duct tape.
There we go.
Some sticky tape, because I'm
or
like,
a seatbelt, you know.
There we go. That's better.
This is
So, yeah, Suck Creek got its name because the Tennessee River, before the Tennessee Valley Authority had dams, the creek that came into the Tennessee River created a whirlpool, and the barges or boats that came down the river would get caught in a suck. It created a whirlpool and a sucking effect and pulled the boats into it, and they got caught and would just spin. So they had to get mules to tie ropes to the boats to pull them through the suck. So the big creek that roared down the mountain coming into the river created this whirlpool and this suck. So they named it Suck Creek.
Huh.
And Shake Rag, this is another interesting
Shake
tip.
Rag, where's Shake Rag?
So Shake Rag was right just up the road from Suck Creek. There's a community, there's coal mines, and there's a coal mine little town there. And people would live next to the water. The miners would go up into the mountains, they would send the coal down on chutes and load them up into the boats. But people would, when the boats would come by, they would shake a rag to hitch a ride, basically on the river. And so they named this little town Shake Rag. And they're in Mullins Cove between Jasper and South Pittsburgh, Sequatchie Valley, and Chattanooga in the River Gorge Canyon. I've got pictures of actually a little chalkboard wall. I think it's broken now, it's down, but I've actually got photographs of an old chalk where they had a schoolhouse in Shake Rag. I went down and got some pictures, some of these old buildings. It was really interesting history. So South Pittsburgh, which is near Jasper, was a town that after the Civil War, carpetbaggers from the north said, hey, you got coal, we got water, let's make a southern Pittsburgh because we'll make steel here. So Chattanooga was a steel town, and the dream of there was to make a southern Pittsburgh, and so that's why South Pittsburgh is there, home of the Lodge Skillet, which is a worldwide
iconic.
Yeah, and we have the Cornbread Festival.
That was my inheritance. I inherited my grandmother's iron skillets.
Oh, okay.
I mean, not the farm.
What about the stock? No,
just and the cornbread recipe, which is worth far more than any stock.
Yeah. So we have the Cornbread Festival right there in South Pittsburgh Lodge, and now you know about Shake Rag, and now you know about the Suck.
Well,
there's one more story. There's so many stories. There's another story. So there is a Swim the Suck event that's happened for years. People from around the world come to swim down the Tennessee River. They get a pilot boat, somebody rowing in a little boat or a board, and they swim 11, 12 miles down the Tennessee River past Suck Creek. And
Wasn't there like a little island? Because you can kayak. Where's the island that they kayak
Williams
from?
Island. There's a couple of islands.
Because we really do have island property.
Oh, wow.
It's not just oceanfront property in Arizona. We have island property in Chattanooga.
Yeah, and there's a few different little islands and peninsulas in the river. They're relatively small, as you can imagine, and so the state of Tennessee.
I didn't expect Hawaii.
Yeah, well, one is actually the state of Tennessee owns, and Randy, who you just met in the office here, his dad was a farmer. He grew up farming the island that's in the middle of the river.
Wow.
Yeah, it's right across from the Baylor private school.
What about Goo-Goos? Are they from Chattanooga?
Nashville. We got the moon pies and Little Debbie snack cakes.
Yes.
Oh,
Little Debbie snack cakes are born right here in Collegedale. And so RC Cola, Little Debbie snack cakes, Coca-Cola was first bottled in Chattanooga and brought candy, which later sold. We had a sugar rush going.
You got all them Yankees. I mean, they come down here, they had to have something.
we were cranking out the sugary snacks. Still do. I mean, so Coca-Cola is still first bottling plant. We like to, we're proud of that in Chattanooga.
Was it when it still had cocaine in it?
Probably so. Yeah.
I mean, sugar, cocaine, snacks. Yeah.
Whitewater, we got it in East Tennessee. The hillbillies have figured it out.
What's the difference in a hillbilly and a redneck?
I would like to know.
Whoa.
Because I would culturally call myself a redneck and not a hillbilly.
Well, I think, look, hillbillies to me a little more Appalachia and away from the grid, and Foxfire. You read Foxfire books?
They're my favorite.
Yeah, really cool books back in the 70s that logged and told stories from Appalachian how to do things, right? And I've
Well, it's
talked about it
it's a
in my
lot of
podcast.
culture. It's a lot of cultural things, you know.
Yeah.
How to kill a hog, how to can tomatoes, you know, like to learn to plant
Yeah.
the signs. Because before there was a such thing as permaculture, there was like the old way, which my granddaddy farmed or whatever. It's like they would plant by the signs, which is basically the phases of the moon laid out in a book. And that, as opposed to calling it like a lunar, they like do it like by the signs of your body. You plant certain things when it's in the head, or certain things when it's in the knees, or
Oh.
yeah,
Yep, and to find water, the divining rod.
yeah, witching rod.
And cut white oak for your shingles,
Mm-hmm.
for your roof. Yeah, all that stuff. To me, that's a little more what I would consider hillbilly. And rednecks are a little more plentiful.
Resource. I mean, more of a modern term.
And the hillbilly, a true hillbilly, you know, to me is a little more back in the ways, and you know, really knew how to make some moonshine and hide it.
But you know, like why that came about? I mean, like, and what I think the difference in, you know, like Middle Tennessee, and it's because of the farm. I mean, if you're going to farm on the side of a mountain, you got to be some kind of special.
Yeah, and I mentioned Grootly Lager in Grundy County. There was basically a Swiss or a German, basically a village that grew, and to grow it, they terraced it like they did in Europe, and they had to bring lime, and they introduced, you know, different farming techniques for these mountainous and rocky soil. And my great-grandfather, in Sequatchie Valley, there's a lot of farming, more in the fertile, where this river comes down. But they spent a lot of time moving rocks out of the fields, right? And so, yeah, just to prepare.
Trees.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
can you imagine?
Clearing.
I mean, clearing. I mean, it's like,
It's a constant kind of thing over here. And in Middle Tennessee, at the Central Basin, such a different topography. And then you roll into West Tennessee. My wife went to Memphis to school over there at the
it's
med
like
school.
the farther west you go, the flatter it gets.
Yeah,
And the sandier the soil gets.
and it's just a different temperament. Her family grew up in Savannah, Tennessee,
Oh.
and which is West Tennessee, and it's a very different culture.
I mean, and they're a lot slower. Not like, you know, just like, believe it or not, just the pace at which things move. Not that the people are slow. I mean, but
Yeah.
it's like just that
They drive so fast.
in Nashville.
Also in Memphis,
Oh yeah.
they drive crazy.
Well,
Yeah,
in
but
the
it's like we're
city.
talking about like
Yeah.
skip the in the middle.
Okay.
In the middle. Because you know, like between Nashville and Memphis, I mean, it's pretty desolate. I mean, there's not that many people.
No.
in some of these counties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, Tennessee is a very, very interesting state, and if you're exploring Tennessee for real estate, then just know that we live in three very distinct cultures and areas that have unique characteristics, and they're all wonderful. And I liken it. I'm going to be with a family today, moving from California. They purchased a home here. They sold their small home in California and buying a larger home with 3.5 acres.
Wow.
Beautiful place in
The
North
Clampets
Georgia.
are coming back.
It's the Beverly Hillbillies in reverse.
In reverse, they're coming back.
And
The Clampets are coming back.
they're ecstatic and over the moon. So it's just fun to be a part of that.
And you know, I've had a couple of those families that have come back and they didn't know, but they've come back to the place of their great grandparents. When they move in, then you get to doing their genealogy, and they're
Oh,
like, they just randomly pick this place. But
That's
they're
cool.
like, their chickens are really coming home.
Wow.
The chickens are coming back to
Chickens
roost.
coming home.
They're coming to roost. It happens every day at dark, right?
That's true.
And so, Jiazhen, thanks for dropping in. But I mean, let's
I know.
want to tell. I mean, you're bringing people all the way from Asia
Asia. Yeah. So
and different parts of the United States from your
Right.
culture.
I think Tennessee meets all the requirements. Like people from Asia, they like to have water, mountain, good air condition, for living purpose, and Tennessee meets all the requirements, and that's what is so attractive. Yeah.
What do you think, like, culturally? Like,
Culturally.
like, coming from another country. Like, I can only imagine what it would feel like to me to go to Southeastern, like, go anywhere in Asia, culturally. My daughter likes to read manga books, and she wants to eat everything with chopsticks. Like, she is so,
Oh, wow.
she is so interested
Yeah.
in Asian, like, all kinds of Asian culture, whether it's Korean music, like K-pop, or, like, that's her thing. And when she's here, you know, like, she's from Tennessee. She's obviously, she hasn't been there yet. She'd probably get on the plane and go right now.
Yeah.
But the things that she looks for, like, where do you get authentic Asian food? Not like American buffet Chinese food, but, like, you know, like, the
So-
things that you miss from home.
Amazing from home, definitely, like a lot of noodles, rice noodles, and some spicy food, like really spicy kind, and also dumplings, not the one from like sushi bar or
Yeah.
those Chinese buffet. But if you want to find local Asian restaurants, there is one downtown in Chattanooga called Hanmi, and also one in Cleveland, Rise and Go. Please go there. The owner is my friend. And also I'm attracting other restaurant owners to open their brands here locally in Chattanooga and also in Nashville. They will be providing more authentic Chinese food and also like Korean food, Japanese food. So there's getting more diversity in our area.
What do you love the most about being here?
Being here, I feel like people are really friendly, really nice, and the pace of living is a whole lot slower than in Asian countries. And also there's more space for people to grow, like more opportunity, no matter it's in life or at a working environment.